Welcome everybody to July 2016 ShoreTel Administrative Monthly Education Session. My name is Ryan Grave and I'm the host for today's presentation. Joining me this morning is Chief Technology Officer Jeremy Ness. Jeremy, how are you this morning?
I'm doing magnificent, Ryan.
Excellent word choice. All right, and please tell the fine people on the call what we will be talking about in this session.
We'll be reviewing ShoreTel Collaboration Suite as these are more admin focused. We will be deploying a virtual collaboration appliance, adding it to the director, doing some basic configuration, then showing some of the client side, what your end users will see.
Sounds riveting.
It will be.
Excellent. Before we get to the good stuff, who is Matrix Networks? We are let me step back. What we do is IP communications for the growing business. We've been a gold-level ShoreTel partner in the Portland area since 2008 and have had the pleasure of deploying solutions for incredible clients such as the Portland Trailblazers, Whitmer Brothers, Powell's Books, Doc Martens, and the like. We are an organization, more than that though, that began as communication partners and really worked to evolve with your company, long-term relationship, and our job is to find innovative technologies that match your environment. We do not believe in cookie-cutter solutions, and we are dedicated to our craft of being a communication partner for you long-term. Short and sweet. What we're here to talk about today is the Collaboration Suite. Before we can talk about it, we must define it first. We are not exactly diving into, the unified communication suite, your desktop client, your click-to-dial by name, directory, presence, that sort of thing. We are talking about the added-on features that come with the service appliance. Your instant messaging, specifically your instant messaging, audio conferencing, and web conferencing, which is more or less just screen sharing. Would you say that's an accurate description, Jeremy?
It is dead on, Ryan.
Bingo. As we come to a crossroads in the ShoreTel evolution, we find ourselves between two different clients. The old version, legacy version, which is the communicator client, shown on this screen here on the bottom right in this region, and then the new client, which is the ShoreTel Connect client found right here. Now, Jeremy, what would you say are the biggest differences when it comes to these two clients?
Well, from an end user perspective, they are vastly different. I've been using ShoreTel since version 7.5. Up through 14.2, used to the communicator client, worked great. Really, I did see some people struggle that weren't, computer savvy, let's say. Just features are hidden, they're behind tabs. It just worked fine, worked great, kind of workhorse, but I guess definitely could be a little more user-friendly and a little better use of desktop space, that type of thing. So the Connect client is just vastly different. As you can see on the left, it actually starts with just a real small pane, mostly white space. Then the more that you drill down into things, these little drawers kind of pop out to the right. However, as this screenshot does show, if you're doing an IM and the older communicator client launches a new window, you close it, that type of thing, where the Connect client is just a lot more seamless. So in the new client, big use of white space. In terms of it's real flat, it's real white, kind of modern UI, UX design. On that left-hand side, if you ever do have a voicemail, upcoming conference call, anything like that, a black box does show up, so it really draws your eyes to anything that you need to pay attention to at that point in time. One nice thing is that it's have that profile picture. If you're in a larger organization, multi-state, multi-site, multi-country, it's always one of those nice things to have. Put a picture with the face. And
quit stealing my thunder, Jeremy. That's where I was supposed to chime in. But it is great to have that kind of personal connection, especially coming from a larger organization. Fortunately, here at Matrix, we know everybody's face. But when you don't know Mary Sue from down the hall, it's nice to put a face to the name.
Another nice thing, at least when it comes to collab between the two clients, is the persistent chat and the communicator, that 14.2 and lower versions. If you did chat with somebody, you close the window, start a chat back up, anything you had previously typed is gone. Now with the Connect client, that is persistent, but pro tip here, that it's actually stored on the computer itself, not on a centralized server. So you go to another PC, you're not going to have the persistent chat, the history. If you reformat the PC, new PC like that. So do keep that in mind, that it is tied to the local installation, local Connect client. As far as screen sharing, they're vastly different of how you do it in Connect versus Communicator. So Communicator, you do have your appliance, your SA100, your SA400, which we'll touch on shortly. But basically, you have to go to a web page, provision your web conference, do everything there, screen share there. So basically, you have to completely leave the Communicator client, just almost zero integration to the Communicator client. With the Connect client, it is 100% integrated. You click on events, a little drawer kind of slides out to the right, new event, provision it there. Once it's time for the conference, you can just click a button, your ShoreTel phone will call you. From right there, you can screen share IM, anything like that. So it's all 100% seamless experience in the Connect client. If you're doing collaboration with someone else in your organization, Connect to Connect, extremely seamless. They connect to their Connect client, you do the same, getting collab and all that, screen share IM, very easy. In Communicator, as that was web-based and quite a bit older technology, you're definitely stuck to older browsers, which we'll hit on browser compatibility here shortly. But same with people outside your organization. So send them a link, they're not getting the newest hotness of HTML5, that type of thing. So and that is really nice now in the Communicator or in the Connect client, excuse me. If you do have someone exterior join the conference, no plugins, anything like that. So I said just a lot better experience in Connect almost across the board when it comes to the Collaboration Suite. Should touch on the fact that us as administrators, almost nothing has changed. Your SA100, add an IP, add to the directors like you did, same with the 400, same with the virtual administration is almost the same. So in terms of the back end, what we need to deal about as admins, almost no change in that client-facing and user-facing is a radically different experience. All right, so let's touch on the different elements here. So hardware, as I kind of already touched on, we do have the SA100 and the SA400. Those are purely just a capacity difference between those. The SA100 is depending if you're Connect or prior, is generally a 50-50 500. So 50 audio, 50 web, 500 IM. The 400 is a 200, 100, 2000, so 200 simultaneous audio, 100 simultaneous screen share, and 200 IM. And then in terms of the virtual appliance, it's really sized however what resources you give it. So you can size it like a SA100 or size it like a SA400, or if you size it all the way up, I believe it is a 200, 200, 2000. So then you can have the 200 audio, 200 web share, 2000 IM. That's our hardware and the capacity. Version, again, I've already kind of touched on the fact that on the back end, really no difference in terms of provisioning and administrating an SA100, 400, or virtual. But on the Connect versus on-prem or the Connect versus 14.2, vastly different experience for the end users. Licensing. So this comes down to on-prem versus cloud. So if you have on-prem 14.2 or on-prem Connect, you license simultaneous audio or web conferences. So say you're a 100-person organization, you can license 10 or 20 audio and web ports. So you're going to have, two 10-person audio or web. You do license all of your users for the ability to use the collaboration, but then, how many ever simultaneous connections you have can use it. Another pro tip for on-prem IM is a non-licensed feature, as in it does not require a license. So if you do currently have a virtual environment, really easy to spin up a virtual collaboration appliance and enable IM for all of your current users at no cost. When it comes to cloud, Connect comes in either an on-prem, cloud, or you can do a hybrid. So if you are doing a hosted Connect or Cloud Connect platform, the collaboration is licensed per user. So any of the user profiles that come with the UC, desktop client, that type of thing, there's a few phone-only bundles. But if you do any real Office bundles, those are all going to come with a version of Collab. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it's like a 8 simultaneous audio and web for the lowest level, and goes up to like 25 and 50, I believe. So that's going to be per user. Those are not pooled at all. So if you have 2 different employees or at different levels, they potentially can have different conferences that they would host.
And Jeremy, you've had the pleasure of administering large ShoreTel phone systems. I'm seeing both sides of the coin. When it comes to launching a service appliance, would you lean towards a hardware-based or virtual environment?
Personally, I always go virtual if you have the resources. Again, less you have to rack and stack, less power, less heat, less networking generally. Just click, deploy the OVA. Potentially, less cost in terms of dealing with buying the physical appliance and then licensing it, versus being able to just license the ports in a virtual environment. So, but again, easy use, easy backup, all that type of stuff. I'm always going to choose virtual if I have the resources available in my cluster.
Sorry, that threw me off.
You agree, right?
Your cluster, yes. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. All right, perfect. Great. So, mobile. If you do have the ShoreTel mobility router, and currently have mobility in place, there's an IAM functionality that can tie into the collaboration suite. So that would then enable on-prem and off-prem or mobile users to IAM with users that you currently have in the office. Then browser. So this breaks down in a few different ways, as I kind of already touched on. If you are on Connect and you launch a webinar or screen share, anything like that, you never leave the client. You're just always going to be in the Connect client. So really the browser and Connect only ever comes into play when you're doing web share audio conference with people outside of the organization. And then obviously if you're still in the 14.2 days and prior, it's just going to be a whole different experience, or your on-prem users, but really you invite people to the screen share the same exact way. The older 14.2, not exactly state-of-the-art when it comes to browser support. We're looking at IE9 due to some ActiveX plugins and some Firefox support. So, again, not the latest and greatest. If you are talking the Connect platform, we are looking at the modern, IE10 and above, Chrome 40 and above, Safari 7 and above, and Firefox 30 and above. So, again, nice having the more modern browser support with the Connect client. Where does it fit and where does it not? So as you guys can tell, who are on the webinar currently, we are using GoToWebinar for this. Really, one of the limitations it comes down to is just the pure amount of dial tone you can get to your appliance. So say you have a PRI, great, you have 23 possible channels. Say you have 2, great, you have 46. All of a sudden your marketing guy comes to you and says, hey, I have a great idea for a webinar. Let's get 100 people on this thing and show them how to use Collab. Say, sorry, Mr. Marketing, sir, but we only have 46 calls. Like, great, 46. Somehow he gets 46 people on that. All of a sudden, no one else in your organization is going to be able to call out, and no one external is going to be able to call in. So, again, that's the PRI scenario. If you do have SIP, obviously that makes things a bit easier. However, some SIP carriers still lock you into the amount of call paths you can have. Some let you burst. I assume several of you guys are still stuck on the POTS days. Obviously, really no flexibility there. If you're going to have your 8, 10 POTS lines, it is what it is. So a lot of it has to do with just how much dial tone can you get in and out of this box. When it comes to GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, that type of thing, there's quite a bit of feature parity. I'm sure that, I guess I'm not real familiar with the GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting platforms. As soon as they're dedicated platforms, I'm just educated guess you're going to have more functionality. However, in-house at Matrix, we do use our web sharing, audio a lot for sharing quotes with people. If they have any, issues, that help them out, show them, our desktop client, show them how to do something director, that type of thing. We do use that a lot, but on average, we're having 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people on any single, web share. So again, that's really the big limitation, is just how much, audio, call paths, that type of thing can you get into the appliance.
Is that really what I sound like?
Yeah, that's pretty much dead on. I think if someone else was standing in the room like, is that Ryan talking?
But no, it is something to consider. I can speak from experience as a marketing professional. I had no idea how a webinar really worked and the resources that it required from within an organization, and would have expected my ShoreTel Collaboration Suite to work just like that. So the ability to succinctly tell that story is really important. So that's all I wanted to chime in.
Thanks for the marketing viewpoint there.
You never know.
So demonstration. Before I get into that, I do want to touch a little bit more on the capacity. So here's the capacity chart for the physical SA100 and SA400. So again, we're looking at our 50, 50, 500, up to 16 conferences. A single conference can go up to the amount of simultaneous audio ports for your appliance. Excuse me. So on an SA100, you can have a single 50 audio, 50 web conference. SA400, you're looking at a single 100 if you're doing an audio and web. So notice that's a 200, 100. So as far as the IM clients, that's the 100. If you have 501 IM clients, it's not just going to shut off and stop working. It really just has to do with the capacity and compliance as far as what ShoreTel is going to support. They say, hey, we're confident that SA100 can handle up to 500 IM clients. It might take 600. Well, I assume they've tested it, but you get the point that just technically not supported. So those are our physical options. If I go down to the virtual, most people are going to be running G711. So again, you're kind of small and a large. So if you want to call this your 100 and your SA400, even though it's technically not, when you boot up the VM, you're not like, hey, I want this to be a small one or I want this to be a big one. Again, it's just really how many resources you're going to dedicate to it. So large, again, you can look at the 200, 200, 2,000 in terms of the capacity on those. Don't have the numbers here. I think I'm on a different chart. But essentially, you're looking at for the smaller 50, 50, 500, and it's going to be 4 vCPUs and 2 gigs of RAM. And they go up to that 200, 200, 2,000, you're looking at 16 cores and 6 gigs of RAM. This is a VMware-only appliance. Does not support in Hyper-V. Due to the more Linux nature of things, ShoreTel just does not support Hyper-V. So currently, if you do have a vSphere cluster, and you can deploy that. Last month's webinar that Ryan and I did go over deploying a virtual phone switch. So I'd see that webinar if you want more curiosity. So in this webinar, I'm not going to deploy the collaboration appliance. I've already deployed it, but it's almost the exact same procedure. There's an OVA that sits in the iNet pub directory on the C drive of your ShoreTel HQ server. You can just go, file, deploy OVF, OVA, and your ESXi client, vSphere client, and it's almost a next, assign an IP to it. With that said, we'll pop open our ESXi client here. So as I did mention, for that small appliance, the quote-unquote small, the 5050 500, we are looking at 4 vCPUs and 2 gigs of RAM. So again, as I did touch on last month, you really want to set up your CPU reservation, RAM reservation, that type of thing for the appliance. You don't want, if you have an oversubscribed host, the host trying to steal into those resources back. You're just going to have audio, web sharing glitches, IM, that type of thing.
I would feel remorsed if I didn't interject and say that those videos can be found on our YouTube channel as well as on our website. Sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of great info coming out of the marketing department over here.
I'm here to help.
So this is the director in ShoreTel Connect. So currently that 14.2, this is more or less ShoreTel 15, however a pretty huge rewrite. Obviously in terms of that Connect client, which I will demo here at the end, but the director, all the same things, more or less, same options. There's some different spots, a little more intuitive. So you might notice I'm using Chrome as a previous admin. I don't know if you guys, if you're using IE 9, 10, you're trying to be on Windows 8 and administrate your ShoreTel, so it's kind of yelling at you that you're using a non-supported browser. So just as in the Collaboration Suite now does support a lot more current browsers, so does the director. So in director, we're now going to add the appliance, the collaboration appliance. So our hardware type, so here's our physical SA100, physical SA400. Here's the vPhone and vTrunk switches that we touched on last month. and today we are working with a virtual appliance. So give it the very unique name of Collab.
Probably could have used marketing's help on that one.
Yeah, it's not real flashy. Sorry about that. I know everybody's in here and the director looking at my horrible naming scheme. I got the MAC address. And lastly, you need that IP one more time. So when you are setting this up, don't need the daily backup, you do want to put in a fully qualified domain name here. So if you do email out any links to external people to join, any screen sharing, this fully qualified name is going to be filled in. So most of you assume probably have a split brain DNS in terms of the local DNS is probably AD integrated. They probably have DNS hosted by somebody else for external DNS. Again, you're going to want those matching fully qualified domain names. And then again, resolve the internal IP and the external IP. In terms of accessing this externally, the appliance can be added and just needs port 80 and 443. So your HTTP and your HTTPS do need to be available from the outside. That's it in terms of what connectivity you need from the outside. So now that is done, save it. It does complain about my FQDN not being filled in because it does look for the reverse DNS. Fine. So now that it's deployed, nobody has the ability to use it. So we need to go and allow individual users access to it. As I mentioned, you can allow everyone to access it, excuse me, but you're only able to use whatever your simultaneous licensing is. So if I'm going to do it on a user-by-user basis, select the user, applications, allow them to use the conference bridge, that's going to be your audio and web portion, and then your IM. So obviously if you're looking at more than 3 users, doing that one by one is not a lot of fun. So we can do a bulk edit, allow the IM, allow the conference, save it. So all of our users are now able to use the Collab Suite and use IM. So finally, now that we did that, so we've added the appliance to director. We have, oh, it looks like the appliance is not letting me in.
Just 1 second. Pay no attention to us stalling for time. I found an interesting fact the other day.
But
all cows eat facing north or south. A group of scientists studied this almost to the 99th percentile all the time.
It's extremely fascinating.
There's no punchline here. That's a fact.
I'm
not really sure why.
So I get in here.
Didn't even save your password, man.
Looks like it is trying to launch HTTPS and not allowing that.
I always go with the same password. Maybe you should try that.
So sorry about that, guys. So the director was trying to send me to an HTTPS site, which was not enabled in the appliance. So now that I'm in, we can look at any conferences. So any conferences in progress, past conferences, that type of thing. There's some basic reporting out of here. Not a lot in here, honestly. You can see when there was a conference, how many people connected, if they're internal or external, that type of thing. So if you come in here, get date, time, IP, server, call GUID, that type of thing. So conference options, these are more or less going to be your standards, kind of defaults. When individual users do go and make a conference, they're able to go and overwrite that. So, but again, just do you play a sound when someone joins, when you actually start the meeting? How do you want people to be able to connect? That type of thing. HTTPS. So apparently we found that this is not enabled, but obviously I would recommend enabling it, especially if you're doing screen sharing of any sensitive documents and anything like that. So if you're used to SSL or HTTPS, this is your normal generated CSR. Upload it to CA. Once the CA issues a certificate, you can upload the certificate, the private key, then of course your intermediate CA cert, so that you have a full cert chain. All right, so that was pretty much adding the appliance, allowing users to use it, doing some small configuration. And that was pretty much that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the end user sees. So again, this is going to be the new Connect client. When your end users do provision an audio conference or web sharing, they can do it either out of Outlook or out of the Connect client. The demo kit doesn't quite set up here, but if you do create it out of the Connect client, it actually does open up an Outlook counter appointment. So at that point, you are able to then go invite somebody to it. So as I mentioned before, you have the real thin pane of glass here, where I have just good white space. Again, there would be black if I had a VM or if I had a voicemail, and if I had a collab session coming up soon, it was a hey, it's 5-minute warning. That's going to be there, again in black box. So we have Ryan here. Says he's unavailable, offline. If he was online, so this is going to be his call handling mode. And this is going to be the fact that he's not connected to IM.
Really sad we couldn't chat about
right. And I don't have his picture. As you can see, more drawers coming out here.
Also a problem.
So as far as creating an event, it looks like Communicator doesn't quite get the memo. The IM is there yet, but that's all right. So at this point, we can go conference, start time, is it reoccurring? What type is it? So collaborative and presentation. So it's kind of sort of your go to webinar, go to meeting. So collab lets other people join in, talk, that type of thing. To where if you do a presentation, it's more, hey, you're just sharing your screen. Everybody joins the conference, gets muted, that type of thing. So organizer, they do have this nice agenda here. So we can go item 1. So if you've ever been on a conference call, a lot of times they kind of generally spiral out of control, get very off topic. All of a sudden your 10, 20-minute thing turns into 45 and you still don't feel that you're productive whatsoever. So it's kind of a neat feature in here. You can come in, say, hey, 10-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute. When people from the outside connect or other people in your organization connect via the client, you can kind of, it does tick along down there and be like, all right, we're done with item 1. It's been 10 minutes. Let's wrap it up, move on to the next one.
And it's amazing. No one will follow a suggestion, but you put some color coding in front of them.
It is so true. It actually does. We are running Connect here at Matrix. It's still in controlled release, but really been digging this portion of it. So as I mentioned before, you can kind of go set those defaults for when it starts the meeting, that type of thing. But then your end users will be able to go in and configure that per. So I click this. It's probably going to be cranky. Yeah, again. Still hasn't quite synced up since I just added that collaboration appliance. But at this point, if I had Outlook integration all set up correctly, you pop an Outlook window, fill in all the info, the call-in number, the access code, the link to the screen share, make it real easy to invite people from outside your organization. Can people from the inside, if you do set up a collab with them, you're seeing at that little black window, they just one-click join it right in the Connect client.
Sterling demonstration.
Well, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for all that information, Jeremy. That was a lot to take in, but we surely appreciate it. As I mentioned, these will be posted to YouTube. Feel free to, I know a lot of this is meant for administrators, but there were several nuggets in there that are great for end users and executives. Once we have it posted, I would recommend finding those little snippets and probably time sending them the location within the video where they might find that relevant information. To that point, we actually, while creating the content for this session, posted 2 new blog articles. One is for administrators who are looking to launch a service appliance within their organization, some best practices, things to consider, as well as an 80-page implementation guide. 80 pages. How do you possibly deal with something that large?
I'm sure there are portions that are more relevant than others. Normally just follow the numbers.
More of a
reading.
More of a one-pager guy myself.
Pretty easy. Yeah, not a lot of installation guides are one-pager, right?
Makes sense. And beyond that, we actually have an end-user posting that is really for quick access to some of the links, some of the training tutorials, and self-paced learning guides that ShoreTel has published over the years, dating back to pre-14.2, if you're still running those versions, but a really nice link to send out to your end users so that they can find the tutorials, easy access tutorials, as well as self-paced guides. So those are two resources that are available on our website. That's mtrx.com/blog. Thank you all for attending this session. I hope you found it valuable, and we look forward to our